This is my ranking of the best ARPGs on PS5 that I've played, based purely on my personal experience. Each one is placed from masterpiece to trash, depending on how strong the combat feels and how deep the loot and build systems are. Let's get straight into the list. Elden Ring throws you into the lands between, a massive fantasy realm filled with dangerous enemies, hidden dungeons, powerful demigods, and countless secrets. Combat rewards careful timing, different character builds, and smart exploration, while every region offers new paths, bosses, equipment, and discoveries that encourage constant curiosity. Once I started exploring, I rarely followed the main path because every side road seemed to hide something worth finding. I kept changing my build, trying different weapons and abilities, and that freedom made every battle feel fresh. Some bosses pushed my skills harder than almost anything else I had played, but beating them always felt worth the effort. I also loved how the world trusted me to uncover its mysteries instead of pointing me toward everything. Even after many hours, I still wanted to search every corner because I never knew what surprise was waiting next. It easily secured a masterpiece tier on this list. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth expands the adventure beyond Midgar with vast regions, real-time action combat, deep character progression, party synergy abilities, dozens of side activities, and an emotional story where Cloud and his companions continue their pursuit of Sephiroth across an unforgettable fantasy world. Once I reached the open areas, I spent far more time exploring than following the main objective because there was always another activity or hidden reward waiting nearby. I enjoyed switching between party members since every character handled battles differently, and combining their abilities made fights much more exciting. The minigames also surprised me because they were much deeper than I expected, especially Queen's Blood, which I kept returning to between story missions. The beautiful locations, memorable soundtrack, and strong character moments kept my attention through the long adventure, and I rarely felt bored despite the huge amount of content. This easily claimed an excellent tier on my ranking. Cyberpunk 2077 places you in the sprawling metropolis of Night City, where first-person action, deep RPG progression, cybernetic upgrades, player-driven choices, and branching quests shape the story of V, a mercenary chasing survival, reputation, and dangerous opportunities in a futuristic society. I expected exciting combat, but I didn't realize how much freedom I would have in building my character. I spent time upgrading cyberware, testing different weapons, and mixing hacking with direct combat depending on the situation. The side quests surprised me because many of them felt just as interesting as the main story, making me stay in Night City much longer than I had planned. Although I noticed a few bugs and occasional performance drops, they never distracted me for long. The visuals, music, voice acting, and atmosphere made every district feel alive, and I always found another reason to keep exploring instead of rushing ahead. It landed in my excellent tier. Dragon's Dogma 2 is an open-world action RPG set in a fantasy kingdom where the Arisen travels alongside AI companions called pawns. It features large-scale monster battles, flexible vocations, dynamic exploration, and a world filled with hidden caves, quests, and dangerous creatures waiting to be challenged. I enjoyed traveling with my pawn party because they made long journeys feel much more lively, and I liked how they constantly shared advice and reacted during battles. Climbing onto giant monsters and fighting them up close never stopped being entertaining, especially when different enemies joined the same fight and created complete chaos. I also spent plenty of time exploring caves and hidden paths instead of rushing through the story. The combat eventually became repetitive, and I wish there were more challenging encounters along with deeper class progression. Even with those issues, the adventure stayed fun because the world always encouraged me to wander a little farther. It found its place in my great tier. Diablo IV is an action RPG set in the dark world of Sanctuary, where 5 unique classes battle relentless demons, powerful bosses, and dangerous dungeons. Character progression, extensive loot, flexible skill customization, and large regions filled with quests create a rewarding adventure built around constant growth. I spent a lot of time experimenting with different skills and gear because changing my build always opened new ways to approach combat. Every powerful item I found made me want to push deeper into another dungeon, hoping the next reward would be even better. The boss fights tested my timing without ever feeling unfair, and I liked how side quests and world activities always rewarded exploration instead of feeling like filler. Even after finishing the main story, I still had plenty of reasons to keep playing through tougher challenges, stronger enemies, and new character builds. It belongs in my great tier. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt is an open-world action RPG where monster hunting, deep storytelling, meaningful choices, sword combat, magic signs, and exploration come together across a vast fantasy world inspired by dark folklore. Side quests, contracts, and memorable characters make every region worth discovering. Once I started taking contracts and wandering away from the main story, I realized some of my favorite moments came from unexpected side quests instead of major missions. I enjoyed preparing for difficult monster fights by using the right oils, potions, and signs because every victory felt well earned. The world always rewarded my curiosity, whether I found hidden treasure, a new contract, or another memorable character with an interesting story. I also spent far more time playing Gwent than I expected because it became an enjoyable break between adventures. Even after dozens of hours, I still wanted to see what waited beyond the next road. This belongs in my masterpiece tier. Lies of P is an action RPG inspired by the story of Pinocchio, set in the dark city of Krat where deadly puppets and terrifying creatures roam the streets. Precise combat, challenging boss fights, weapon customization, and character progression shape every step of the adventure. I liked how every fight demanded patience because attacking without thinking usually ended badly. Learning enemy patterns, mastering perfect guards, and finally defeating difficult bosses made every victory feel satisfying. The weapon assembly system also kept me experimenting since mixing different blades and handles created fresh combat styles that suited how I wanted to play. While the world was more linear than I expected, the memorable locations, strong soundtrack, and interesting story kept pushing me forward. A few difficulty spikes caught me off guard, but overcoming them made the toughest encounters even more rewarding. This found its place in my great tier. Final Fantasy XVI is an action RPG set in the war-torn land of Valisthea, where powerful icons, fast-paced real-time combat, cinematic battles, and a character-driven story shape the adventure. Skill customization, large regions, and spectacular boss encounters keep the journey exciting from beginning to end. I loved how smooth the combat felt because every new icon ability opened more ways to chain attacks together. Mixing different powers and creating my own ability setup made every major battle feel exciting, especially during the massive icon fights that constantly raised the scale. The story also kept me invested through its strong characters, and Clive quickly became one of my favorite protagonists in the series. Although I wish some RPG systems had more depth, the memorable soundtrack, incredible visuals, and satisfying action easily carried the adventure across its long runtime. It earned a place in my excellent tier. Remnant II is a third-person action RPG that combines fast-paced gunplay, melee combat, challenging bosses, deep character builds, and procedurally generated worlds filled with secrets and rewarding exploration. Multiple archetypes, powerful weapons, and replayable campaigns make every playthrough different from the last. I really liked how every new world surprised me because I never knew what boss, dungeon, or hidden reward I would come across next. Experimenting with different archetypes, weapon mods, and equipment combinations kept combat fresh throughout my time with it. The boss fights constantly pushed me to adapt instead of relying on the same strategy. And finally, overcoming the toughest encounters always felt rewarding. I also appreciated how much replay value the changing world layouts added, giving me plenty of reasons to return after finishing the campaign. Some important secrets were almost impossible to discover without outside help, but that wasn't enough to overshadow everything else. It found its place in my great tier. Demon's Souls is an action RPG set in the fallen kingdom of Boletaria, where challenging combat, interconnected regions, powerful bosses, and careful character progression define the adventure. Different weapons, magic, and equipment encourage adapting your strategy instead of relying on a single approach throughout the journey. I really enjoyed how every victory felt earned, because rushing into fights was almost always punished. Exploring each region and discovering the right equipment for difficult enemies made steady progress feel rewarding instead of frustrating. The atmosphere also stood out, with every location creating a constant sense of danger that kept me paying attention to every corner. While some older mechanics occasionally showed their age, the incredible visual upgrade, satisfying combat, and unforgettable boss encounters made it easy to appreciate why this adventure became the foundation for so many modern Souls-like games. It earned a place in my excellent tier. Black Myth: Wukong draws inspiration from the classic Chinese novel Journey to the West, combining mythological storytelling with fast-paced action, magical transformations, challenging boss encounters, and detailed environments filled with legendary creatures. Character upgrades and unique abilities gradually expand the combat throughout the adventure. I was constantly amazed by how impressive every new area and boss looked, because the visual quality stayed incredibly high throughout the adventure. The combat became much more enjoyable as I unlocked additional spells and abilities, giving me more options during difficult encounters instead of relying on basic attacks. I also liked discovering the different mythical enemies, since each major battle had its own style and personality. While exploration could have offered more meaningful rewards, the exciting boss fights, fantastic presentation, and satisfying progression kept me eager to see what came next. It belongs in my masterpiece tier. Kingdom Come: Deliverance II is a medieval action RPG built around historical realism, where skill-based combat, meaningful choices, survival mechanics, and an open-world recreation of 15th century Bohemia shape every part of the adventure. Character progression, detailed quests, and reactive NPCs create a grounded role-playing experience. I really enjoyed how the world responded to nearly everything I did, whether I solved problems through combat, persuasion, stealth, or simply staying on the right side of the law. Watching Henry steadily become more capable through practice instead of instant upgrades made every improvement feel earned. The side quests were also consistently engaging, often matching the quality of the main story while encouraging me to explore places I would have otherwise missed. Although some systems took time to fully understand, the rewarding progression, memorable characters, and outstanding historical atmosphere kept me invested for dozens of hours. It earned a place in my excellent tier. Rise of the Ronin explores Japan during the turbulent Bakumatsu era, combining open-world exploration, fast-paced sword combat, stealth, historical events, and meaningful character relationships into a large action RPG. Multiple combat styles, ranged weapons, and player choices provide different ways to approach both missions and battles. I had the most fun experimenting with different weapon styles because each one encouraged a slightly different approach during fights. Switching between direct combat and stealth also helped keep missions from becoming repetitive, especially when clearing enemy camps or tackling tougher objectives. The historical setting and memorable characters gave me plenty of reasons to continue exploring, even when the main story occasionally lost focus. While the world sometimes felt a little too familiar and the technical performance wasn't always consistent, the satisfying combat, enjoyable progression, and freedom to tackle encounters in different ways still made it an adventure worth playing. It found its place in my good tier. Granblue Fantasy Relink centers on a crew of Skyfarers traveling between floating islands, where fast-paced action, party-based battles, massive bosses, and a wide selection of playable heroes drive the adventure. Character growth, equipment upgrades, and cooperative mechanics provide plenty of ways to customize your team. I had a great time switching between characters because each one felt noticeably different and gave combat a fresh rhythm. The boss encounters were consistently exciting, with huge enemies, flashy attacks, and satisfying team abilities that made every major fight feel spectacular. I also appreciated how capable the AI companions were, since they contributed so effectively without constantly needing my attention. Although the adventure could have benefited from more meaningful challenges, and the progression system sometimes became a little overwhelming, the enjoyable combat, memorable battles, and excellent variety of playstyles kept me engaged throughout. It earned a place in my great tier. NieR Automata combines fast-paced action, role-playing systems, multiple gameplay styles, and a thought-provoking story in a post-apocalyptic world where androids battle machine life forms for humanity's future. Its unique structure, varied combat, and multiple story routes gradually reveal a much larger picture with every playthrough. I really liked how the adventure constantly surprised me by changing perspectives and introducing new gameplay ideas instead of relying on the same formula from beginning to end. The fluid combat made experimenting with different weapons enjoyable, while the emotional storytelling gave every major revelation greater impact. I also found the soundtrack unforgettable, adding even more weight to the biggest moments. Although the open world and side activities occasionally felt repetitive, the creative storytelling, memorable characters, and outstanding gameplay variety made it an adventure I was always excited to continue. It earned a place in my excellent tier. Tales of Arise builds its adventure around two opposing worlds, combining real-time battles, character progression, and a story shaped by freedom, sacrifice, and unlikely alliances. Distinct regions, customizable abilities, and cooperative battle mechanics steadily expand the journey as the story unfolds. I really enjoyed watching the party grow closer because every major character developed naturally instead of feeling like they were only there to fill a role. The combat also stayed engaging thanks to its fast pace, satisfying combos, and the freedom to switch between different characters with unique abilities. Exploring each new region kept the adventure interesting since every area introduced fresh environments and challenges. Although the final stretch lost some momentum and became more repetitive than I expected, the strong cast, rewarding combat, and consistently enjoyable adventure made it easy to stay invested until the end. It earned a place in my great tier. Wo Long Fallen Dynasty reimagines the Three Kingdoms era through fast-paced action, challenging melee combat, magical abilities, and a progression system built around precise deflections and aggressive battles. Expansive stages, powerful bosses, and flexible character builds offer multiple ways to approach every encounter. I really enjoyed how every fight rewarded good timing instead of simply relying on stronger equipment, making each successful deflection feel satisfying. The fluid combat encouraged me to stay aggressive, while the impressive environments and memorable boss encounters kept every stage visually exciting. I also liked experimenting with different weapons and abilities without feeling locked into a single playstyle. Although the enemy variety became repetitive over time and some progression systems didn't add much depth, the responsive combat, rewarding mechanics, and consistently enjoyable action made it easy to keep pushing forward. It earned a place in my great tier. Stranger of Paradise. Final Fantasy Origin reimagines the classic Final Fantasy adventure through fast-paced action combat, flexible job progression, and challenging battles built around aggressive offense, precise defense, and constant character customization. Every mission introduces new environments, powerful enemies, and countless opportunities to experiment with different combat styles. I had the most fun mixing different jobs because swapping between them during combat opened up plenty of creative strategies instead of locking me into a single approach. The fast combat stayed satisfying throughout, and discovering familiar Final Fantasy references made the adventure even more enjoyable. While the story took a long time to become interesting, and the overwhelming amount of equipment often turned inventory management into a chore, the rewarding combat, deep customization, and steady stream of new abilities kept me playing until the end. It found its place in my good tier. That's my complete ranking after spending many hours exploring worlds, collecting loot, and creating different builds. Let me know which ARPG you'd put in the Masterpiece tier, and I'll see you in the next ranking video. Thanks for watching.